This podcast is presented by the Prince George's County Memorial Library System.
Hi, I'm Hannah.
I'm Heather.
I'm Darlene.
I'm Hawa.
And this is our podcast, These Books Made Me. Today we're going to be talking about Anastasia Krupnik by Lois Lowry. Friendly warning as always, this podcast contains spoilers. If you don't yet know who gets an F for a fabulous poem, proceed with caution.
Okay, so what did this book mean to everybody? Was this everyone's first time reading, or did anyone read it when they were younger? And if so, how did this compare to your memories of reading it then? Do you want to start, Hannah? I think you suggested this one.
Yes, I suggested this book. I read the whole series growing up. I loved them to pieces. I thought they were so funny. So I'm really glad that you all agreed to read this with me. I think it held up pretty well. There were maybe a couple moments that maybe didn't age so great. But on the whole, I felt like it still felt much the same as it did when I read it before. It was still genuinely funny. It still had a good flow. The characters were interesting. It was still a very good experience rereading it. I hope that you all enjoyed it as much as I did.
I did. I also read it when I was younger, but I had really forgotten a lot of it. But I really loved Lois Lowry when I was young. But I remembered some of her other titles, like Summer to Die, much more vividly than I remembered this book. But it was a treat. I thought it was really entertaining and sweet and well written. And I love our main character. I think she's great. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was actually my first time reading it. And it was like, as much as I enjoyed reading it, I was kind of sad that I didn't read it as a kid because I feel like I would have really enjoyed this as a kid. I really like the protagonist. She's really fun. I like the little life lessons that are not really in your face. And yeah, I think she's like the poster child for kids say the darndest things.
Y'all know that it's always my first time reading the book for the most part. But this was my first time reading it. But no, I agree with Darlene. I had read maybe some other Lois Lowry books, but I hadn't even heard of this one until you guys proposed that we read it for the podcast. So I'm glad I got the chance to read it, as an adult. It was fun.
I feel like this is the Lois Lowry book that gets forgotten because, she's written a couple Newbery Winning books, like Number of the Stars and The Giver, which are both great. And there's like A Summer to Die. And she's written so many things. And this series, although I don't know if it's her longest series, but it's definitely one of them. And I think a lot of people read enjoyed it, but it kind of flies under the radar a lot. And side note, this is the thing that most shocked me going back to this is that I realized reading this that from the description of Anastasia's hair, it said it was colored like a Hubbard squash. Which I looked up and is apparently sort of an orangey yellow. And I had this image of her for decades of having brown hair, kind of I had this image of her of Molly with glasses, like Molly the American Girl doll with glasses and brown hair. I think the cover of the book that I read growing up had her with brown hair. So yeah, kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh, the image of her in my head is totally different than what the text described.
Yeah, Lowry mentioned that in the foreword, I think. She had said that she even described her and she was like, but in later runs of it, the cover featured a brunette. I don't know when it changed. I don't know if they just felt maybe her characteristics fit a brunette more. I wonder why. I also wonder why her publication company decided to do that.
Well, we kind of ran into that with Nancy Drew, too, because some of the covers depict her as redheaded and some as blonde. In the introduction to my edition, she mentioned that she based the appearance of the character off of Amy Carter, Jimmy Carter's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Who I guess was, when she started writing it, the Carters were in the White House at the time. And so she just modeled her after that. But yeah, the introduction was really charming too.
Yeah.
She's just a good writer. You can feel it
Yeah. She brought up the name thing again and how like she saw like a college production of it, but by that person, I don't know how she phrased it, if she said that the actress was like well endowed or something. Yeah. So the second performance of that scene, they had her put the name on the back and like,
because the whole audience laughed when she was like, look at my chest.
Yeah. Because in the book it plays as like, look at my chest, like I don't have any, like Anastasia is saying like, I don't have much of a chest. Which, yeah. I don't know, it was just a really cute anecdote. And I was like, oh, this is already off to a good start.
Yeah. Yeah, she also talked about presenting at a school, at a parochial school. And they asked her to do a reading. So she read the chapter about where Anastasia wants to become Catholic. And she was a little bit worried because the nuns were like very traditional order and they were still in full habit.
Yeah.
And she said that by the end of the chapter, the nuns were like laughing and the one was like wiping tears out of her eyes. And yeah, you would be, because I think it's such a charmingly written, I don't know, interpretation of how a child would view the whole, what's important is you get this confirmation name. Like, that's what I want. I want to change my name. And the religion doesn't matter, whatever. I'll jump through those hoops. I just need the name. And I'm sure like all of those nuns remember feeling like that when they were younger too, or like even maybe when they were in the novitiate and picking their names. But yeah, I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, I think what I like about this book is, so I think the book does humor really well. I've read a lot of books for adults that are supposed to be funny, and I hate them all, the ones that I have read. And I feel like kids' books can always get that laugh out of me, whereas like adult books, So that was fun. It was nice and wholesome.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was trying too hard.
Yeah.
And I think humor can feel that way sometimes with the wrong writer.
Felt like similarly to when I was reading Blubber with Judy Blume. Like I feel like she encompassed someone of that age very well. I think maybe Blubber a little more realistically, but still I felt like
Blubber.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
But yeah, I still really appreciate it. I felt like she seemed like a 10-year-old.
Yeah, I thought so too. She was very identifiable for me.
Anastasia Krupnik, no middle name, is a 10-year-old only child, but not for long. She lives with her poet professor father and her painter mother in Boston. She has a tiny wart on her finger, a fish named Frank, and lists of her likes and dislikes in her green notebook. Anastasia feels a little different from her classmates and worries that she is quote-unquote dumb because of this. Her parents have offered to let her name the baby, and she's gonna come up with a real banger of a name that she plans to unveil at the birth. One Ball Riley Krupnik. She navigates several minor crises. First, her approach to a class poetry assignment, an offbeat tonal poem with no caps, earns her an F from her teacher, Mrs. Westvessel. Then, she falls for an older student named Washburn Cummings, but has a disastrous attempt to impress him by copying his hairstyle. She also toys with the idea of becoming Catholic so she can change her name to Perpetua, but abandons the plan when her friend Jennifer tells her about confession. She is disappointed that some of her classmates have young, fun grandmothers while her grandmother is in her 90s and in the throes of dementia. Eventually, Anastasia is able to find a way to bond with her grandmother while exploring her grandmother's memory of Sam, Anastasia's long-dead grandfather. Her grandmother dies and her mom goes into labor the same day. Anastasia meets her baby brother and decides he's not a one-ball Riley after all, but a Sam.
All right, so now I'm going to do the author bio. So Lois Lowry was born Lois Hammersburg on March 20th, 1937 in Honolulu, Hawaii. She was the middle child of Robert E. and Catherine Hammersburg. Her father was a dentist in the Army, and therefore the family moved often and lived around the world. The rest of the Hammersburg family spent World War II in Catherine's hometown of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, while Robert Hammersburg was stationed overseas. Lois excelled at reading, learning to read at the early age of 3, and her achievements as a student caused her to skip second grade. She does describe having some trouble with mathematics after this decision, and afterwards always feeling like the youngest, usually the smallest, in every grade. When Lois was in 6th grade, she moved to Tokyo, but she would graduate from high school at the age of 16 in New York City. She had formed a goal of becoming a writer of novels and enrolled at Pembroke College, the women's division of Brown University, to study writing in 1954. Lowry left higher education at age 19 to get married to a naval officer, Donald Gray Lowry, in 1956 and moved to San Diego, California. They had 4 children together, Alex, Kristen, Gray, and Benjamin. Lowry later finished a bachelor's degree in English literature from the University of Southern Maine in Portland, Maine, and then began graduate studies at the same institution. She began working as a freelance journalist, and she and her spouse divorced in 1977. 1977 was also the year that Lowry published her first novel, A Summer to Die, which was inspired by her experience of losing her sister Helen to cancer years before. Her next work was Autumn Street in 1979, which is also the year that she started her Anastasia Krupnik series, which she would continue writing until the mid-90s. Lowry would receive the Newbery Medal for both Number the Stars, published 1989, and The Giver, published 1993, and has written many other books for children. Lowry is an accomplished photographer in addition to her literary accomplishments. She lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Okay, so we'll dive into some discussion of the book. I think we had all noted that Anastasia reminded us a bit of Harriet from Harriet the Spy, the first book we covered on this podcast, and both of them write in green notebooks. So how do we feel? Do we think that this was a bit of an homage by Lowry to Harriet the Spy?
Quite possibly. And now I'm looking up when Harriet the Spy was published.
Earlier than this.
Yes, but
I could see that. It does kind of feel like every chapter, like Anastasia's kind of like on a little adventure or like exploring something different of her own. She's like Harriet, but likable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, is it rude to call a kid character unlikable?
I called her a sociopath in that episode, so I think you're being more tactful than I was. Yeah, Anastasia is not a sociopath. She has empathy. She has, those moments that all kids have. I was thinking like when she's with her grandmother. So initially she's just really bummed about the situation with her grandmother. She's like, everyone else has a grandmother who's 50 and mine is like 92 and she doesn't even remember my name and she doesn't remember anything and she lives in a nursing home and we can't do anything fun with her. But then when they have her over for Thanksgiving, it was Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, Thanksgiving and then Christmas.
Yeah. So when they have
Pumpkin
her
pie that she
over
hated.
for holidays, Anastasia spends some time with her, and yes, her grandmother can't remember her, but her grandmother can remember all these other things from like farther back in her past. So Anastasia realizes like the way to connect with her is to ask her questions about her memories. And then, her grandmother tells her about how she met her grandfather and what he was like. And Anastasia starts to really value her grandmother and identify with her in some way. I don't think Harriet would have done that,
Definitely not.
I think Harriet's whole arc in the book never gets less narcissistic. Everything is always about Harriet and how Harriet's feeling, and everyone else is just kind of collateral damage in whatever Harriet's doing. I never get that sense with Anastasia. I mean, I think she is trying really hard. She knows she has sort of wrong impulses. She talks at one point about her bad secret thoughts because she keeps her little list where she's like, I hate Ms. Westvessel.
Yeah.
I hate Washburn Cummings. I hate my grandmother. But all of those people through the course of the book, she really interrogates herself about why she feels like that. And then she moves them off of her hate list and onto her love list over.
Even the guy from the store.
Yeah, even the pharmacist.
Yeah. Took a little longer for her.
Yeah.
No, I like that she was that it's a really good depiction of kind of how you're not really ever going to be set in your ways, like no matter how strongly you feel about something, right? So she has the love and hate. It's not just likes and dislikes. And she moves freely between them, and she doesn't really seem to find an issue with that. I mean, at some point she does ask her dad what it means. I thought he was going to tell her that the term was wishy-washy, but then he tells her, oh, like a mercurial temperament. And then she's like, yeah, that's me. And then she just keeps using that phrase. And I don't know why, but it was hilarious to hear, like to think of a 10-year-old just saying mercurial temperament.
But that was weird too, because she's not particularly mercurial. Like she doesn't like fly into rages or anything. And I think there's usually a connotation of like anger or bad temper with mercurial that's not really there for her. She's just more, I don't know, wishy-washy.
Yeah.
She's just trying to figure things
she's just
out,
a kid.
you know?
Yeah.
She's her mind.
So I looked
my
up Harriet the Spy's publication date, and I mean, I knew it was earlier, like you said, but I wanted to see if maybe Lois Lowry, when she would have read it. So she was an adult. It was 1964, so she would have probably had kids at that point. Maybe her kids read it.
Her kids probably would have, because
maybe she
they
encountered
would
it
have
that
been
way.
at the age where that would have been a book that was notable, and you would you'd think she probably read with her kids a lot.
I would imagine she would. She seems like that kind of parent.
Speaking of parents, how did we feel about the Krupniks parenting style with Anastasia?
I was surprised, I think. I mean, so I think it read similar to some other books, and I was like, is this just like a 70s thing? Like they were just trying out just being like nicer parents that were like kind of trying to take a step back and let the child learn their own lessons. But I thought they took a really big gamble on letting her name
the baby.
Yeah, name the
sure
baby, because
did.
I was like, if she doesn't learn her lesson in time, you're going to end up with a really terrible name for your child. So I think that they had a lot of trust, but I guess they really
It was warranted.
Yeah, it was more. Yeah, they knew that she would eventually learn her lesson. Yeah.
The mom and dad.
Harriet would have named that baby One Ball Riley.
Oh, she would double down on One Ball Riley. 100%. Or she would have named it like Harriet Jr. or something. No, it was funny when that little anecdote in there made me laugh, because my parents used to work in the same building with a lady who had a bunch of kids. And when she was pregnant with the youngest one, she told one of the older kids, well, you can pick the name for the baby, thinking that the child was like together enough to do that and stuff. And I guess the kid like bounced some names off and stuff, and it all seemed fine. And then the baby is born, and they're like, what did you decide for the name? And the kid said Fluffy.
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die.
That child did not end up named Fluffy. She ended up as a Jennifer. But
Yeah.
then,
Yeah, and that's
a
what.
nickname.
And then I was like, wait, what if she doesn't learn her lesson and they have to like, be like, oh, actually, then they would have to like go back on it, and I feel like that would betray her
that would
trust.
be bad parenting.
Yeah.
They got kind of lucky there.
Yeah, they got really lucky.
Anastasia would hold a grudge for that. Yeah. She'd write about it in her notebook.
I thought it was really funny. Like, I don't know how they kept it together with some of the things that she said. Like, I appreciated them for taking her seriously and not making it seem like everything she does is just like little kid problem. But it always reminded me of like, just like stories you hear from parents that are like, I have to discipline my child, but like it was really hard in this moment because I really wanted to laugh at such and such thing.
I think it was hilarious when I think the whole way they let her know that they were having a baby, that was basically just like she's basically telling them like how she got a terrible grade for her poem, and she asked her dad how long it takes to make a book of poems, and he's like 9 months, and she's like, that's a long time. You could get a baby in 9 months for Pete's sake. And then her parents both laughed and looked at each other and laughed harder. And then it says, she had a very strange feeling that she knew why they were laughing. She had a very strange feeling that her things I hate list was going to be getting even longer. I think that was a really I feel like some parents may not have use that opportunity to tell their kid. They probably just would have been like, oh, it's a grown-up thing. Don't worry about it. But like, they let her know. I thought that was cool.
I liked them as parents, but I will say I'm somewhat biased. I think that their parenting style with her is somewhat close to how I've parented with my kids. And I think like when you have a precocious kid, yeah, it is hard to not laugh sometimes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to be like totally reactionary to everything they're saying, because kids are just more extreme than adults are usually. And so, that's part of what they're figuring out when they're little is like how to navigate their emotions and feelings and how to properly hang words on the things that they're experiencing or worried about. And I thought they had nice, open, honest communication with her, even on hard topics. Like they weren't shaming her about her grandmother. I thought the scene where she went from I hate my grandmother and kind of graduated to I hate that grandmother can't remember things and it makes me really, really sad. Like the way they let her navigate that feeling and come herself to the place where she's saying, like, I don't hate her. I hate how I feel when I'm around her because it makes me uncomfortable and sad that she can't remember me. I thought that was excellent parenting because I think it would be really easy in that instance to hear your child saying like, I don't want grandmother to be here. I hate grandmother, or like, I don't like her. I don't want to spend time with her, to go into the like preachy sort of like, no, you don't mean that.
That's your grandmother.
Yeah. You love her, which doesn't help. Like that doesn't help the child identify at all what they're actually feeling. And feelings are way more complex than that, and letting her get there at her own pace and just kind of providing her the support to navigate that, I think is really good parenting. And I did think that the two of them, their little like fight that they had over her mom's first boyfriend, like it was stupid, but that is the kind of thing that you fight about with a spouse in a marriage sometime, where it's like, it's not really about that. It's about the 8 million other things that happen. But the way that they reacted that one thing is just like really sticking in your craw and like you just can't with them right now. And like when she said, like, I just thought it was super passive aggressive, but the mom said something like,
Full head of hair.
Beautiful blonde curls. That was actually just mean. But the part where oh gosh, it's in here. Now I can't find it, but the part where the mom is basically like, if I was going to fall in love with somebody, it would be someone that wasn't dismissive of someone's first love. It was such a like passive aggressive, but like accurate. Like she's washing the dishes and she's still like stuck on, I can't believe he like laughed about my childhood love.
So I think that there's a part in the book, I guess around the time when the parents are telling her that they're having a baby, and she's just like, you're too old to have a baby. What are you trying to do? Get in the Guinness Book of World Records?
But to be fair, her mom's 35. And when you have a baby at 35, they call it geriatric pregnancy, which is so rude.
But still, so many
so
people have babies after 35.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, so listeners, I'll let you all know that I listened to the audiobook on Libby, but I also checked out an ebook copy, and I think the ebook is more recent edition, and there were differences between the audiobook and the ebook, nothing major, but like one of the things that I noticed was that they in the ebook it said, when they were talking about how they knew the baby was a boy, it says, it's really pretty interesting, Anastasia. They have this special test they can do on women. They did this test on me, and it showed that the baby is a healthy boy. And the audiobook mentions that the test was only done on certain women. And Anastasia's like, what do you mean certain women? And she's like, yeah, women over 35. And I'm just like, so was that a thing? Like, did they only do that with women over 35 at some point?
I'm not sure. Maybe,
Yeah, to find out the sex of the baby?
They
Well, I guess
probably did an
ultimately the baby was healthy.
amniocentesis. I don't know if then an ultrasound would have been super common as like a routine. thing. So I was assuming it was an amnio and that they, they did that to check for like genetic issues, which are the concerns with a geriatric pregnancy. And then we're also able to tell her the sex at that time.
That makes sense. And I guess I also see why they updated that in the newer edition, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, going back to the parents and their approach to Anastasia, I think it works. I mean, just the fact that she is so empathetic. Like, I almost wondered if a child like could have this much empathy or like this much understanding, but I just let it go. But it was the part where like the mom was explaining like a past relationship she had, and
a love affair?
They both told, like, her and this person, I think he was like a lawyer, like told each other how they saw themselves in 10 years. And both of them were happy, but it was like two different.
It didn't include the other person.
It didn't include the other person,
and
right?
she picked up on that. That's why her mom was sad thinking about it or something.
Yeah, and she's like, it's because you guys, like you guys didn't see yourselves in each other's like futures. And then she was like, yeah. And I was like, that's so like, I don't know. I just felt like that was a lot for a kid to pick up on. But yeah, I mean, there are many instances of her just getting things from like an adult perspective, like the Wordsworth poetry and the inward eye was also like another thing where I was like, oh, like I do think that their parenting style kind of shines through in like kind of how she acts. And yeah, I feel like, sorry, I was also going to say like through the parents, I also felt like Lois Lowry was trying to like say certain things to adults or maybe like about adults. Cause I thought it was funny that the mom was like pretty insistent after the Guinness Book of World Records, like she was like 35 is the prime of like my life or something. It was like it's the prime of a woman's life. And then what did the dad say?
He was like, no, it's 45.
Yeah,
What's his age?
Yes. So I thought that was interesting because like I think we often think that like before 30 is the prime of a woman's life, and I was like, oh, okay, like Lois Lowry trying to like just like quietly insert her thoughts into a children's book.
Yeah, I think with the love affair thing when she was talking to her mom, I think the only reason why I think that it's maybe not super far-fetched that she picked up on her being sad because they weren't like in each other's lives was because like she Anastasia herself was convinced that she was in love and she wanted to hear stories about a love affair, and because she already knew they didn't end up together, maybe that's why she could kind of pick up on that. But like the poetry thing and the thing about the inward eye. Yeah. Inward eye, yeah, that felt like a little bit of a like that almost went over my head. So, but also, I mean, I guess
Wait, but I did think it was cute that she, like as soon as she was in love, she was like, I think my parents should know about this.
Yeah, like that was the first people she went to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought she was very believable. I mean, I don't know. I said before we started recording that Anastasia reminds me a lot of my middle child. And I think, precocious kids, they pick up on a lot. Like, I think we don't give kids enough credit. I think 10-year-olds often have a fairly sophisticated understanding of things, and especially in a house where that's been fostered and encouraged. Because all of the conversations that she has with her parents, they really don't condescend to her. They talk to her like a person rather than like talking at her like a child, So I found it believable. I would be interested to know if this character is based on Lois Lowry or one of her kids, like if this was kind of channeling a known person, even if that was herself. And I think also like kids who are readers, and like reading obviously is a thing for Anastasia. She keeps reading her parents or her dad's poetry books, even though like clearly those are adult books, but like, even just for the inscription, she's really aware of what's in each of those books. Like she says the one to Annie was, it was after a breakup, so those poems were a certain way. The one to her mom is all love poems, and so I think she's clearly reading above grade level and reading things that are more mature. And she's probably in a house full of books that are of that level. And that to me resonated with when I was a kid too. Like my parents were very much in the, if you can read it, you can read it. Like they did not censor text. They would absolutely censor movies and stuff. But if the book was in the house and I wanted to read it, they weren't going to stop me, even if I was 8 and picking up like War and Peace or something. They were like, go for it. You know, if you get bored with it, you'll put it away. And I had a dictionary. So it was like, okay, well, if you get stuck, have fun. Yeah. And I feel like she had kind of a similar exposure probably at an early age, being like a precocious kid in a very reading focused home. Like,
yeah, it says that Britannica says that the series is based in part on her daughters.
Yeah, I can see that. Like she feels very real to me. Like this feels like a very real little person and human being and not two-dimensional like some of our characters have been in other books.
I mean, that's true. I can see that because I do think that even when the parents, like, I feel like it was a lot of guiding conversations, but like allowing her to kind of come up with her own like interpretation of scenarios. So I can see that. Like they fostered kind of that sort of thinking in her where she could pick up on things like that. So that's true.
As we're talking about reading and poetry, I think we should talk about the poetry chapter, the beginning of Anastasia's real hate for Miss Westphal, which does, alter over time, which I do really like that about the book, is that she develops more nuanced views of all of these people that are on her bad list at one point. But Miss Westphal apparently had given directions to have a poem in which all of the end words rhyme. And Anastasia did not follow those directions. And she wrote this very lovely little poem that says, "Hush, hush, the sea-soft night is a swim with wrinkle-squirm creatures. Listen to them move smoothly in the moistly dark here in the whisper warm wet." It's a great poem. Like, that's a great poem. And it is the kind of poem that I think a kid could write. But then she got an F and it was like super discouraging.
Oh,
and so then we hate Miss Westphal. It's like, what do you mean you're giving her an F? Like, that was beautiful and she worked so hard on it.
I know, but I hate the fact that she had put, is it then in her list of things that she did as a 10-year-old, she said, wrote a terrible poem?
Yeah,
and
she
I was
crossed
like,
out wonderful and put terrible. And then she crossed out again after her dad sort of
told her
redeemed her and said this was great.
Yeah, changed the F to fabulous.
When I was reading that, I said, Anastasia, I put a note that said Anastasia was way ahead of her time. Poems did not have to rhyme. Also, why was the teacher telling the whole class everyone's grade? Like,
I don't know. I feel like that maybe would have been accurate at the time. I think we talked about this. You might have been the only person on that episode. Was it the Addie episode where we talked about spelling bees?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think I was the only one that had spelling bees and like multiplication drills and stuff at school. Mm-hmm. And they were very public. Like everyone was lined up and like you were very publicly wrong when you were wrong. So, I think
I had a spelling bee like once though. It was just like 1 year randomly.
Yeah. So I feel like probably back in the 70s, things might have been more public like that. I don't think that was really a no in education until more recently. Like, don't publicly shame the kids that you're teaching. But then, like, we don't like Miss Westphal after that. But by the end of the book, like, I think Lowry works a neat trick by redeeming her character for us as well. Mm-hmm. Like, when she shows that concern for Anastasia and then says, oh, you're having, so much happen in your life right now with your grandmother and your baby brother. So, she had some empathy too and wanted to check on her and make sure she was okay. So no one's exclusively bad or exclusively good in this book. There's nuance.
She wasn't a certified hater. Like, I mean, she did say, I gave you all instructions, and she asked Anastasia, like, did you pay attention to the instructions? She was like, honestly, no. So it's just like, I did feel bad because like the F was kind of harsh. And I feel like as a teacher, like maybe she could have appreciated the poem, but maybe made her feel like it was a decent poem, but just not follow the instructions, but she just shut it down.
Okay, we should talk about the names. Again, we did talk a little bit about baby Sam and initially the one ball Riley, name that Anastasia writes down as her preferred name for the baby, which she is doing to be mean. Like, she doesn't want the baby, so she's like, I'm going to come up with the worst name I can. She got that name, One Ball Riley, from Washburn Cummings, who I think we need to discuss.
So I think it's funny that and when she tells her parents about the crush, like, she's like, dang, where I highlighted this. I need to find it because she basically is just like, yeah, I'm in love with this guy. He's older than me. Okay, hold on, wait. All right, I found it. Will you people please listen to me for a change? I'm in love with Washburn Cummings. That's important. Washburn Cummings is in the 6th grade. Washburn Cummings is African American. Is it going to bother you guys if I get involved with someone who is African American and who is older than me? Older than I, corrected her father automatically. And I thought that was really funny. But one thing that I noticed that I was talking to Heather about beforehand is that in the edition on my Kindle, they say African American. And in the audiobook edition, they say Black, almost as if to like they felt like African American was more like politically correct for them to say in this edition, which it just stood out to me. I thought that was interesting. I mean, I don't feel like it matters one way or the other, but I just thought that was funny.
Oh yeah, my version said Black.
Yeah, so you had we had the same audiobook. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is interesting that they changed it.
Yeah.
That Washburn Cummings discussion is the one where the parents have just had the fight about Edward Mark, her mother's first love.
Oh, yeah.
And her dad said that he had a dumb name because he had 2 first names. And then said that Washburn Cummings has 2 last names, which was her mom's objection. But her mom's response when Anastasia has her whole like, I love Washburn Cummings. Her mom says, I don't care if you get involved with someone who's African American or in the 6th grade. I just don't want you to get involved with someone who is insensitive or who is want to trespass on the inviolate memories of childhood in a way that is completely lacking in charity or compassion.
Oh, wow. I just realized that was definitely a dig at her dad. Like,
it was totally at the dad, and it goes over Anastasia's head. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Washburn Cummings doesn't trespass on anything, as far as I know. Once he got kicked out of the movies, though, for being loud and obnoxious.
I also think it's funny that she's just like, yeah, Washburn Cummings is the same height as me. I mean, as I, but his hair is about 2 feet higher than that. So altogether, counting his hair, he's about as tall as you, Daddy. That is so dramatic because later on in the book, I'm sure she says something about her dad being like 6 feet tall.
Is Anastasia really tall for a 10-year-old?
She is tall. I think. Well, I don't know about
his
for a
hair
10-year-old.
is really
He
big.
probably got a big fro, like,
He must have really tall hair.
Because, yeah, she talks about him having, like, the comb in it and, like, his hair is kind of his thing. And then she has her hair thing where she tries to make her hair look like his. And that made me think of Anne of Green Gables. I was wondering, are there some, like, little nods to Anne in this, too? Because Anne has the, like, hair dyeing incident. And Anastasia has her horrific, like, try to give herself an afro.
Or is just having, like...
By just drying out her hair.
Yes,
Sorry,
but, like,
Hannah.
with so much product.
Yeah.
And she's, like, braided it. And, oh, gosh, I was just imagining it looking so bad.
Or is just trying an ill-advised hairstyle part of growing up?
It might be, but I do feel like Anastasia has a lot in common with Anne, too. You know, the precociousness and the love of reading, the love of language, all her funny little, like, sayings and ways of, like, phrasing things feel very Anne-like at times to me. But obviously she has a much healthier, happier home life than Anne had initially, but I thought that there is some commonality. And even like how she tries to like befriend Jennifer felt a little Anne-like. She's like I had decided I was going to make Jennifer my best friend because she had like great curly hair. And like, it was like, that was kind of Anne's like Diana basis too. It was like, I love her hair. She's my best friend now.
I thought like even just the whole Catholic part and like trying to figure out what religion. Oh, it reminded me of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which I think was also written in the 70s.
Yeah, I think it predated this one.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I thought that was interesting too, that like we have another heroine that also was like exploring different religions. Because then what was the second one? It was like the monks.
The Hare Krishna.
The Hare Krishna, because they also get to change their name.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm confused that she was drawn to the idea of the confirmation name because being able to choose a saint's name only is very limiting.
No way. The books of the saints are massive. There's like so many names in there.
But they're so boring. When I was being
Oh,
confirmed,
you got some good names in there.
I didn't like any of them. When my parents told me about that you're going to be confirmed, and you can pick any name you want, and I said, great, I'm going to pick Storm, and then they said it has to be a saint's name, and I was like, I'm no longer interested.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like hippie names in this.
There's no fun names.
There's a lot of cool names in the Saint books. There's Christina the Astonishing. Who doesn't want that to be their confirmation
I don't
name?
want that to be my
She could
confirmation name.
fly.
I wanted Storm.
Anastasia, what did she choose?
Perpetua.
Yeah, which I thought was hilarious.
Anastasia Perpetua Krupnik.
Well, Perpetua is one of the people that gets named in there's the part of the mass where they list off a bunch of saints and then they say, and all the saints. And like for me growing up, it was always like Saints Felicity, Perpetua, and all the saints. So like that was definitely a name that like hung on for me. But like also like growing up Catholic, like you get nuns with crazy names too, like Sister John of the Cross, or like,
What's your name? Riley. But I want my nun name to be Sister Riley of Perpetual Bliss.
yeah, like I think that the naming conventions in Catholicism are actually a hoot. And like when you grow up Catholic, you have like just this book, like, The Lives of the Saints, and they have like horrifying pictures in them. Like I was talking to Daphne yesterday about, we were talking about St. Lucy for reasons. And I was saying, I can't ever think about her without the like plate of eyeballs.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, she's always depicted holding a plate with her eyeballs on them. Because, I guess the story goes, the legend goes that either she removed her own eyes or they were removed as part of her martyrdom. But yeah, like, so the books are just crazy. Like you look at the images and they're all so extreme. So she either has her plate of eyeballs or she has her hands like this and there's eyeballs like as a stigmata on her hand. And I think Anastasia would love the Book of the Saints. Like, I think she would have been so excited about the weirdness of it. And like,
She loves St. Agatha. That's a very bizarre story.
St. Agatha's weird. Dymphna, who's the patron saint of mental illness. Like, there's a lot of like real weird stories in the saint books. I feel like it would be great fodder for a precocious child trying to find a name.
Stories are interesting. The names are boring. I will.
I love that.
I'll stand by that.
I love that the confession for her was like the
Deal
line.
breaker.
And then her and Jennifer were kind of, it's like almost like her and Jennifer just kind of were just like, yeah. She said she was trying to get what was the thing that she was trying to get? The exception?
A dispensation.
Dispensation?
Yeah.
What is a dispensation?
That was a real misunderstanding about how
Because like, she was
dispensations
saying,
work.
because she was like, yeah, I brought my bags to put the dispensation in, and then and then they're just like, yeah, I don't think the bag has a rip in it or something like that. So maybe I just,
They both really did not understand what a dispensation is.
And I love that the
you can't get a
parents-
dispensation for not being baptized. They would have just baptized her, taken her through like the process of like later going to communion and confession. But like, yeah, Jennifer was like, well, I can just give you a dispensation for that, which is more like, well, I mean, you used to be able to like buy dispensations if you were rich enough. So it was like you want to divorce your wife? Well, there's no divorce allowed. Well, you get a dispensation. We'll just annul this thing and you can move on with this other person. But like, I don't think dispensations have really been much of a thing in recent times. So
I don't
and
think
it
this
definitely
would have
wasn't
been-
something that would go in a bag, right?
yeah, for sure.
you can't go to like your local church and do that.
I was like, am I reading this wrong? Am I dumb? But this makes sense. Children, right?
But this also would have been not that long after Vatican II, so maybe things were more like in flux for people. Like maybe Jennifer was hearing her parents talk about
Possibly.
dispensations and stuff. Yeah, I mean, you could get like a dispensation so that you didn't have to fast on like a Friday or something, or like Ash Wednesday, like because you were pregnant, right? You could get a dispensation so you didn't have to fast or that type of thing. But like, I think, it would not have gone in a bag.
And I feel like Anastasia's parents knew that, or like they knew that she was misunderstanding something, but they kind of just left her to figure stuff out on her own. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, they realized she was not going to be into it once she realized how many restrictions it was going to place on her to become Catholic.
But I love that she really wanted the like child bride dress.
She just wanted that communion dress.
Yeah.
They're really itchy. At least mine was.
Yeah, I feel like that was the only aspect that I liked about my communion as well. Was the fact that I got to have like a nice, pretty white dress.
Okay, so next thing that we had on the list for discussion was controversy about a swear word and a reference to Playboy. So whoever put that on the list, I'll let you lead on that one.
So
because I don't know what the controversy
I put
was.
that in, and I think the Playboy might have been in a later book because it.
I don't remember that.
I read about
in this
that in
one.
an article, and I think it must have been a later book. But the swear word is so. I think that there was some. I think this book was banned because there's that scene in her father's classroom when the student. What's the name of the student? But
the one who says the futility of life student?
No. The first student, they asked him about, was it McAllister, what did you think of the poem? And he says, frankly, Dr. Krupnik, I thought it was a crock of
Oh.
And then he gets embarrassed because he realizes Anastasia's here and says, sorry.
In the ebook / the physical copy that you have, you can tell that's what was said.
Oh,
interesting.
Right?
So
I think
some versions have it and some don't. The audiobook version
heard it on
had
the audio, yeah.
Okay. Because I think I remember reading that it was removed from some later on. So
we must have the removed one then.
Okay. And then there's a whole conversation where her father says, I'm sure my daughter has heard the word before, but I'm sure she just as surprised as me to hear it in a classroom.
Yeah. And here, McAllister says, frankly, Dr. K, I think it's a crock of, then he sat up straighter, looked embarrassed, glanced at Anastasia and mumbled, I'm sorry. And then her father said, I'm sure my daughter's heard the word before, although I expect she's as surprised as I am to hear it in a classroom, which was weird to me because it's like, well, he didn't even say it. So
it doesn't even make sense.
No, it was just like, oh, I'm sure she's heard that phrase. So she would have tracked it or something, but they should have just left it in.
Yeah, that makes the text not make any sense at all.
Yeah, I think I was expecting this book to be a bit more like spicy.
Why is it
Not.
spicy?
Or it's not spicy. Spicy is the wrong word. Please take that out because that. I guess what I meant was more
I was just traumatized by it forever.
I think I was expecting the book because was this a banned book?
Yes.
I think I was expecting there to be more of like something that felt controversial?
No, this felt more like if people challenged this was like Junie B. Jones, Judy Moody, kind of like they're not respectful enough. Not that there was like really anything here.
Yeah. That's what I meant by that. Not whatever spicy means now in 2024.
And this may not have been in your version and maybe Darlene's version either, but there was a conversation after that not a conversation. Anastasia's sitting there giggling, thinking to herself, I heard my father say that word this morning when he discovered that his pen had leaked
No, that's in the book too.
Yeah. Okay.
It made it very clear like what the word was, but it is strange that they didn't say it. And then he's like, yeah, I'm sure she wasn't expecting to hear that word in the classroom. It's like, well, technically she didn't hear it in the classroom. He didn't say anything. Yeah.
It's like that episode of SpongeBob where they're like knowing that. That sounded terrible, but y'all know exactly what I meant. I used to spend that episode trying to guess what the curse words were, because like, what?
Hey, Patrick, how are you?
Pretty good, SpongeBob.
I thought this was a restaurant, not a guttermouth convention.
Okay. Do we have anything else we wanted to say about her grandmother?
We did. We did discuss her pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, really not, other than just like, I really thought that the paragraph where she was talking, or the chapter when she's talking to her grandmother about her grandfather and their past and her making the shirt, and it just was really charming. I felt like it was really well drawn, and, you know, coming on the heels of Forever, where we said like the dialogue was terrible, the dialogue felt really true to me during that conversation. Like, it was the way that you would talk with somebody who is kind of in a fugue of the past and trying to draw them out on more details, and like realizing that this story is important and that it's part of your past too. Like, I just felt that was a really well written chapter.
I think that when they go to, or her and her dad go to the nursing home, and she sees all her little like trinkets and stuff that she gave her grandmother in her top drawer, I think that was really sweet, because, you know, in the beginning her whole thing was grandma doesn't even remember me and da-da-da-da-da. So I'm sure she was like real like touched to see like, oh, she has like little things of me here. So she, even if she can't articulate it, she knows who I am at heart, I guess, or knew who I was at heart. Yeah.
I mean, I do wonder that, well, so the portrayal of her grandmother, they have this, they take the time to establish that the grandmother is happy due to her inward eye and her memories. And I don't know how realistic a portrayal that is of somebody in the throes of dementia, because I think oftentimes people are more anxious and upset.
Well, and I think she probably was when she was at the nursing home. I mean, there seemed to be a big difference between how she felt about visiting with her grandmother at the nursing home versus when her grandmother was at the house with them and seemed more able to talk about those memories. I don't know. It rang pretty true to me, like having watched my grandmother and spent time when I was in college, like caring for her when her dementia was really bad. And there was something where, like, if you could get her to tap into things from like a long time ago, she would be lucid about those times and seem to be happier. Like, she would talk about like my grandfather, or she would talk about her father or her sisters, or she would talk a lot about like Mexico. And so, yeah, like those would be the things that, or food, that would be the other thing I would try to talk to her about, was like the things that she would make or eat when she was younger. When she would really spin was more when she was in the present and she wasn't recognizing people and stuff. But if you could kind of tap into that, where she was retreating back to a time where she remembered things and was more grounded and centered, those were her better moments, especially towards the end. Yeah, I liked it. I mean, to me, it rang true with my experience. So I know like every person has a different journey with Alzheimer's or dementia, but it seemed realistic to me to what I remembered. But I also kind of infused that, I think, with what I imagined would be like her grandmother, you know, in the evenings at the nursing home was probably in terrible shape, like that she probably was sundowning and frantic and really missing. And especially like when they were talking about her room having a view of like a fire escape, and that like only if she was lying flat could she see the sky. And I think her dad and Anastasia were trying to find some comfort in like, well, she could see the stars, she could see the sky. But those are those kind of like really poignant, hard decisions that, you know, if you can't care for the person, like obviously that's not ideal. You want better for somebody than looking at a fire escape, but the options are poor. So like, I don't know. I felt like it was a nuanced depiction of something that could easily be a very flat, two-dimensional kind of thing. Like the grandmother could have just been the lady with dementia. And I felt like we actually learned something about her. And I thought like just how she was like stroking her hair and everything, you know, when she had all these boys, and she was proud to have those boys, but you could almost feel the like that longing for the girl, you know, like that comfort she was getting from her granddaughter that was different than from her sons. I don't know. I probably was bringing my baggage to the table with that, but I thought it was well written to me.
I mean, the thing that made me think it wasn't realistic is watching my grandfather die from Alzheimer's, and he was very much stuck in fresh grief of losing, fresh to him, his wife who died years, like decades ago. He he was losing track of who he was, losing time, but he remembered her loss and he remembered that he missed her. And that was the thing that he was stuck on. That was the thing that was fresh to him as everything else melted away. And he was very unhappy.
Because with my grandmother, she would often forget that my grandfather was dead because it was more recent for her. And so she would, I can remember being at their house because I would drive to San Antonio from Austin to give my uncle a break one day a week, just so he could get out of the house because he was caring for her. She was not in a residential facility at all. And she would sometimes just go looking around the house and be like, where's Buddy? Where's Buddy? Which what she called my grandfather. And she would get very anxious when she was doing that. But if you could get her in the kitchen and get her talking, she would be happier. Or if you could get her with like some of the animals, like when we would go to feed the animals, that she'd want to talk about when she was in Mexico, or would get my great aunt to come over, and that she would talk to her about when they were growing up in Mexico. And she would, in those moments, she was present in a way that she wasn't the rest of the time. So I don't know. I mean, again, I think we kind of always come to books with our experiences, and then that determines how we look at it. So for me, it rang true, and for you, it didn't.
I just watched him. Because he was aware he was losing his abilities, and he was aware of the loss of his wife, and he was filled with grief and anger. So I guess perhaps it's possible of a different experience. So.
Yeah, I was trying to look and see if it was based on anything in like her real life. And while it didn't make reference to Anastasia Krupnik, it did say that there was a couple articles mentioned that I guess like it says the giver was inspired by her father's memory loss. So it seems like she does have some experience of having a family member with memory loss in her life.
Yeah, I think it also depends like where someone is in the process of dementia as well. Because again, I think my grandmother was so many years deep into it by the time that I was helping with her. She was less aware that like she wasn't really tracking that she was forgetting things. So there was anxiety because she couldn't remember, like she didn't know you, like who is this person in my house kind of thing. Or there would be anxiety about like, where is my grandfather? Because she wasn't even like remembering that he was dead at that point. But the point where she was stressed about not remembering things had generally been several years before that, So I don't know. I'd be interested to know like whether she was the main caregiver for her father. It'd be interesting to know more about that. Because it sounds like she writes a lot of her stuff from the people that are in her life that she knew.
I think most people do.
Yeah, I guess it would be hard not to, because like what would your basis for?
I mean, you have to pull from somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, I've never dealt with like having a family member that has dementia or Alzheimer's, so I don't know like how true it would have rang, or I don't know how true it rings for people, but I will say that like as a book and like as it's written and then as a reader, I thought it was interesting that they brought up the Wordsworth thing earlier to kind of give Anastasia that language to kind of like work through her feelings about what she's because I like that then she noticed that it was her grandma like that found happiness in her solitude through her memories. And then even later after she's passed away, Anastasia's like, well, I'm making memories, right? And now this is a painful memory. And is it really does it actually generate happiness? And so she like was thinking through those things. And I appreciated that was brought forth earlier in the book so that we knew like when she's kind of grappling with those feelings, they didn't come from nowhere. So I did like how Lowry kind of presented that to readers.
Did we want to say anything else about Washburn Cummings? Maybe particularly, did we want to talk about his shirt? Did we have any theories on what the inappropriate shirt said? I just loved that like story about him that he ran from like class to class and like just popped in, showed his shirt, and then ran away. But I have no idea what the shirt said.
Yeah, I was trying to like figure it out too while I was reading it. Like, was it inappropriate? Like, because it was something sexual? Was it inappropriate because it was just a bad word? Like, I was trying really hard to figure it out, but no one's reaction to it kind of goes one way or the other. Because I think like obviously they chased him, trying to get him, and then Anastasia's teacher, I forget how to pronounce her name,
Miss Westfessel.
Yeah, Miss Westfessel.
That was so funny. She's like, "Come on, speed readers, who saw what it said?" And it's like, oh.
What are these names?
Yeah. And then they tell her, what was her reaction? I think it was just kind of like, my goodness, or something.
She was like, oh, okay. That's not great. She has the one kid come up and whisper it to her.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know what I don't even know if this is going to make the actual episode, but like before I realized that when this was based, I was like, maybe it's an NWA reference on his shirt or something like that, but that would have been like the 90s, so obviously that wasn't it. So I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, I was trying to think of things that were like kind of tame, but still like explicit enough that you get in trouble. But I don't know. I
mean, maybe it was something related to, so I looked up One Ball Riley, and it's a song?
So, yeah, because Washburn Cummings is the origin point for Anastasia of One Ball Riley.
Of course he is, with his inappropriate T-shirt.
One Ball Riley. Let's see. Interesting.
Like, I even tried to Google what was on his shirt, because I really wanted to know.
I'm looking at oh my God. No, it's really explicit. Oh. Rub-a-dub-dub. Rub-a-dub-dub. Let's give a cheer for the one-balled Riley.
Oh.
Rub-a-dub-dub. Balls. Rub-a-dub-dub. Shag on. Oh, gosh.
I never looked up the lyrics, but I should have.
Came a knock at the door. Who could it be but her goddamn father? 2 horse pistols in his hands, coming to see who was shagging his daughter.
So Lois Lowry says it's okay, on her website that it's okay to reach out to her. Should we reach out to her and ask her what it's like?
Yes, we should.
But I can't imagine that no one's asked her before.
I mean, we can't be the
It's
first to
gotta be
wonder.
under somewhere. I just wanted, why does Washburn Cummings know a dirty Irish song? That's my question.
Like, what?
That's really random.
He's got range because he also listens to Roberta Flack.
Yeah.
He's an interesting person.
I love Washburn Cummings. He seems also very precocious and very fun.
Was something going on with Ireland at that time? Because then I think Robert also had a project earlier that he also got a feeling grade on, and Miss Westfessel, is that her name?
Yes, Miss Westfessel.
Yeah, she said like, well, like the assignment was to like create or like draw a world map, and he decided that he would just make it of like Ireland and like bombs.
With bombs, yeah. So it was probably a reference to the Troubles. But, like, why did the Italian kid draw the map of Ireland? Robert Giannini.
I'm checking the frequently asked questions on her website just in case she put it
I was
on
going to
there.
tweet her, but I'm searching her tweets first just in case.
Oh, is she? No, if she has a Twitter account, go for it.
But she, like, the last time she tweeted was March 5th and before then January 23rd. But people ask her questions, so I'm going to ask her and see. I mean, probably won't get an answer before the episode's over.
Oh, you never know.
Yeah.
You never knew.
We can update it later.
I also looked up the mom's perfume because I wanted to know what it smelled like.
Oh, what are the notes in it?
It says top notes of bergamot, ylang-ylang, lemon, and jasmine. And then it also has lilac, orris root, narcissus?
Yeah, so like a vaguely
Hyacinth, rose, and cloves. So very florally.
floral, but like oriental notes with the...
Yeah.
Why do perfumes still get away with calling things oriental florals? No one else gets to use the word oriental for stuff okay anymore.
Well, I don't see it as often anymore.
I feel like that was still like how Base Notes was categorizing things, though, last time I looked.
Oh, really?
I thought.
Well, I could only find it on Fragrance Net because I
Okay.
couldn't find the Fragrantica page on it, only on like another version of it, but
Y'all want to hear my tweet?
Sure.
It says, "Hi, Miss Lowry. I'm a librarian, and my colleagues and I discuss literary heroines on our podcast. We just finished Anastasia Krupnik, and we were wondering, what was written on Washburn Cummings' T-shirt?"
Nice.
yes.
And I'm going to put hashtag these books made me.
Nice.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay,
So there's no way she didn't imagine that.
Oh, she definitely had
Yeah.
something in her head when she wrote that.
Feel free to DM me. I'm going to follow her so she can DM me just in case. I'm not going to add the feel free to DM me, but in case she doesn't want the world to know, because we just need to know. We need to know. It's
We
bothering
really do.
us. I wonder if she's on Instagram. And we could comment with the These Books Made Me Instagram.
Yeah.
So, in the book, Anastasia is in the corner
Pharmacy?
store?
Drugstore? I don't know.
Yeah, and she's flipping through Cosmopolitan magazine, taking a quiz to see if she's really in love with Washburn Cummings. So we decided that we didn't want to do a Cosmo quiz because those quizzes are a little risque, but we're going to take a 17 magazine quiz. It's called Take This Quiz to find out if you're in love or if it's simply a crush. Find out if they're the one or just someone. So we're going to take this quiz as Anastasia to see if she is really in love with Washburn Cummings. I feel like I already know how this is going to go, but we're going to give it a try. So I guess how I'm going to do this is I'll read the question and the options, and we'll decide which one we think she would go with, and then see what we get at the end.
Sounds good.
When you have a crush, feelings seem to get magnified by 100. You may have thought they were cute before, but now they're gorgeous. Or maybe their jokes that you used to smile at now leave you in a fit of laughter. Infatuation does that to you. It makes it hard to get a real sense of your feelings. Sometimes you might really be falling for someone and feel like you're truly in love, and other times you're just in love with the idea of a person. So to help you sort out your true feelings and find out if you're actually in love or if it's a big old crush, take this quiz to help you determine what's really going on. So the first question is, do you have things in common with your crush? So much. We could talk about our interest, talk for hours about our shared interest, or I wouldn't know, we don't talk much.
I mean, they don't actually talk much, but I do feel like they have a lot of shared interests. So if they did talk, maybe.
Yeah, but I also feel like Anastasia takes on a lot of his interests because she
Just
thinks he's
because.
so cool. Yeah.
I think she doesn't really know.
Okay. I wouldn't know.
I kind of like so much we could talk about our interests for hours, but are they their shared interests or are they her interests because she
Thinks
sees that he
he's
likes them?
interesting.
So I'm torn. Because they don't talk much.
No,
I guess we should
he
say
doesn't know her.
Yeah. He's just like, yo, what's up with your hair?
This weird kid is following me around with her weird hair.
Okay, so I don't know. I wouldn't know we don't talk much. Do you have any inside jokes? So many, or we don't really talk enough to have any.
The latter. But again, I
they
feel like if
could
they
have,
did talk,
yeah.
they would be able to like laugh about Miss Westvessel. They would be able to laugh about his shirt.
The way he answers the phone, which she
Yes.
said she wanted to adopt, but she was like too chicken to do it.
And I feel like he would think it was funny that she was trying to like prank call him too.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
okay, they don't talk enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Poor Anastasia.
So we're going to go with we don't really talk enough to have any.
Wait, although Hannah, as someone who's read the other books, does he come up again?
Oh gosh. I don't think so, but it's been so long since I read them that I can't
Okay.
say for certain.
So we
Hoping
need
they'd
to
meet
know.
each other
We'll
later
have to
or
read them
something.
again.
Goodreads only shows him appearing in book 1, but that may not be accurate.
I hope he comes back, but
Could you see your crush turning into something more serious? Yes.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
I actually enjoy admiring them from afar.
No, she would say yes.
Yes.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
When you're around your crush, you get all nervous and giggly
That.
or are able to play it cool.
No, she completely falls apart when he answers the phone.
she's not
Yeah.
playing it cool.
The hair rules that one out.
Yeah. Do you think you could see yourself crushing on someone else? No way. My crush is the only one for me, or possibly.
I think possibly because she's
Yeah.
so interested in the multiple love affairs. Like,
Yeah.
I think she believes you need to have a lot of romance in your life.
And she has a mercurial temperament.
Yeah,
Yes.
and she goes back and forth between whether or not she loves or hates him. So I would say possibly. How often do you talk about your crush? Literally all the time, or shh, it's still a secret.
Really
They
all
all
the
the
time.
She told her friend about it. She told her parents about it.
She put it in her notebook.
Yeah.
Who tells their parents about their crush?
Right.
Well, she's an only
10-year-old.
child,
Yeah.
so she had limited options.
See, I feel like the second column is kind of alluding to, yeah, y'all not on that level. If your crush moved away, how would you cope? You'd want to make a long distance relationship work. You'd check their Insta and try to keep in touch. This is funny because this book is from like the 70s.
Yeah, I don't know what she would do. I think
probably
she would
do.
just move on.
Dramatic writing letters, I think.
I think if you were to ask her in this peak feeling of being in love, though, she might try to say she'd make a long distance relationship
yeah,
work. But
that's
I don't know
fair.
what y'all think.
I mean, in the later
that's fair.
book, she does catfish someone via letter writing, so, you know.
Okay.
What do you like most about them? They always make me laugh, or their looks.
Always make me laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how does your crush act towards you? Super flirty or really sweet? I mean, he did ask her what was up with her hair. That was kind of
Yeah.
sweet, I guess. Not
Yeah,
sweet,
I would
but
go with that.
your feelings for your crush get stronger the more you hang out or make you feel inexplicably giggly.
Giggly.
Yep.
All right, so if you answered mostly the second column, which is what we did with Anastasia because she don't know him, hold tight. It sounds like it might just be a passing crush. It might be that you don't know them well enough to be sure that your feelings are based on anything real, or if it's more than a superficial infatuation. When you've been crushing on someone forever and then actually start hanging out with them, the excitement of the dream coming true might make you think you're more into them than you actually are. It's important to take it day by day. If it doesn't work out, don't despair. You can still learn a lot about yourself and the world of relationships from a crush. And who knows, as the time goes by, a deeper relationship might grow. Well, considering that he's not mentioned in any of the other books, we don't
That
think so.
doesn't happen.
Do you guys think that Cosmopolitan magazine would have told her the same thing?
Yes, but she thought that it was telling her it was the real deal, right? Because she was trying to use that as evidence that,
Right.
that it was for real. Because yes,
she
I do. I
thinks
think
about
about him all the time.
But you
and
know, the guy at the store didn't let her go through the whole magazine, so maybe she missed out on the pages that would have told her the truth. Yeah.
Probably. Those are important pages. Okay. So each episode, we ask whether our book passes the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test asks whether a work features two female characters who talk to each other about something that doesn't involve men or boys. So, does it pass?
I think yes. I mean, there's a whole chapter where she's talking to Jennifer about becoming Catholic.
Her wedding dress and her dispensation.
And she talks to Miss Westvessel about her poem and about her grandmother dying. And yeah, I think she talks to, well, she talks to her dad about stuff, so that doesn't count. But yes, I think it passes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this episode of These Books Made Me. Join us next time when we'll discuss a book in which our main character can go between the physical world and the spirit world. If you think you know which book we're tackling next, follow us on Instagram. We're at These Books Made Me, and drop a comment on our Guess Our Next Read post.